What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. You're in for a treat today. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, and that is happiness. Monique Rhodes is a happiness strategist who teaches students and corporations around the world how to master their lives. She has spent the last 25 years studying the mind and its relationship to happiness and suffering. Over 70 universities and colleges use her program, The 10-Minute Mind. Her 8-week online course, The Happiness Baseline, has a 100% success rate in raising the mental wellness for every student who has completed it. That is remarkable. I love that we're talking happiness. How are you, Monique?
Feeling pretty good.
You know, that's a funny one to ask a happiness strategist. How are you feeling? Of course, they're feeling amazing. And I imagine this is something that you do on a daily. You're pretty darn good at it. But how does one become a happiness strategist? I guess I'll start there.
I think it's a good thing, though, to think about, because already you've hit on something. You think, well, this is what I teach, so I must be good at it. How are you good at happiness? And I think that one of the most important things is to understand where our happiness comes from. And that was a big part of my journey, because when I was younger, I suffered hugely from depression. In my teenage years, I was so depressed. And by the age of 19, I ended up in hospital having tried to take my own life. And it really made me sit and ask myself a fundamental question, which was, why some people seem to do life kind of easily? And why is it that I'm struggling so much? Is there something fundamentally wrong with me? Is there something broken in me? And if there is it possible for me to shift and change it? And that question and that moment led to this journey of knowing that I couldn't continue living the way that I was. So I had to figure it out. And I traveled all over the world, and I rode a motorcycle through India for 4 years, met with amazing teachers, did amazing work, looked at, all different aspects of the way that people around the world were living, and started experimenting with some of the things that I found to turn my life around. And, really at a point now where I often say, if I wasn't me, I would be jealous of myself. I wake up, I don't wake up every day like high, but I wake up with like a deep, solid happiness that shows up every single day. And it's such a nice place to be in. And I didn't actually know that this level of happiness that I experienced was possible when I set out on this journey.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point to make, because often people are like, oh, you're an expert at, again, happiness or leadership or whatever your thing is. That must come easy to you. No, not necessarily, right? This is something that is ever evolving, always progressing, always something to be diligent and working on. And in your case, to really take what, and I hate to say weakness, but something that wasn't a strength, to make it obviously a strength. And now to be able to give that to so many, I guess, riding your motorcycle around India and going to various places. What did you find? What is most of the world missing when it's like, I want to be happy too, Monique? How do I go about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I want to say that actually happiness does come easily to me. And I'll explain to you why. It does. It is something that I work at consistently, but because I work at it consistently, it does come easy to me. So what did I find? What I found was that we often look at developing countries and we think that poverty is the worst experience that we could have. But what I've found through traveling around the world is that actually the mental and psychological poverty of the West in particular seems to me to be a lot worse than the physical poverty of many of the countries that I go to, or at least at an equal par. So that was the first thing, starting to realize, wait a second, I'm in these countries and I'm seeing a lot of happiness. And a lot of the people who are really happy do not have all the things that you and I are sold: money, wealth, fame, power. All of these things are going to make you happy. And yet you look at some of the most powerful people in the world right now, and we can see that they are not happy, and they often have all of those things. So the question then began to come to me, like, so if it's not all those things that I'm being sold, what is the magic key? And I found what I believed to be it. And I found what I was able to do that turned my life around, which was starting to understand that if all of the people who have all of the external things that we believe will make you happy are not happy, the answer must be internal. And beginning to realize, just like you have this wonderful Mindset Matters image on the wall behind you, starting to understand that the mind is the determiner of either my happiness or suffering. That we think if I change my external circumstances, I'm going to be happy. If I get that car, if I get that raise, if I meet the woman or man of my dreams, I'm going to be happy. And all of those things make us feel better for a period of time. I get the new job and I feel so good, but after a bit, I don't like one of my coworkers, or my boss is a bit of a dick, right? Or I meet the person who I think's the love of my life, and for 6 months, it's amazing. And then all of a sudden I see a side of them that I don't like. So all of that happiness is conditional on other people, right? And this is where it gets problematic, because it's almost like we give our power away to another person. If instead we understand that if we work with our mind differently, if we learn to tame and train our mind, our external experience will be completely different. Well, now we're fully in charge of our happiness. Doesn't matter what happens to us. We start to be in control of our happiness and suffering. And that's what I discovered. And that piece of information completely changed my life.
Yeah. And you and I were talking off air, and I mentioned 2 of the 3 of my favorite countries would not be considered wealthy countries at all, in Thailand and where you're at, Costa Rica currently. These are countries that are not well off by and large. Of course, there's wealth in each country, but when you compare a country to another, they would not even remotely be in that area. But there is a culture of, in Thailand, it's more of the Buddhist way, and it's just very fulfilled. And they would give you the shirt off their back and be happy about it because they treat others as they want to be treated. Costa Rica, Pura Vida comes to mind, a pure life. And it's just, there's such joy, even though they're living in a shack, or they make $200 a month, or whatever that is. Money and happiness are not, it doesn't mean that they're synergistic, and we know that, I think, but yet, to your point, we've been conditioned to think, oh boy, if I make $1 million a year, man, I'm just gonna be happy as can be.
But that's how capitalism works. That's the economy that we're sold, because if we're led to believe that the GDP of a country growing is a good thing. And that's why we're in a state now where our world is collapsing, because we just keep taking more and more resources from it. And that's where it's really interesting. So if we all turned around and said today, well, I kind of need a roof over my head and I need some food, and apart from that, I don't really need much, the whole world economy would fall apart. So the world economy relies on us having this false belief that obtaining more and having more will make us happy, because fundamentally, that's all we want. We just want to be happy. Every single person in the world just wants to be happy. It's a drive in us, and it's something that we all deserve to have. But it's almost like this lie that we're consistently told. So when a culture is moving and a world culture moves in a particular way, it's very hard to swim upstream against it because everywhere we look, we are sold the lie. So becoming aware of the lie, first of all, is an important thing.
That's huge. What you said is what I have discovered through my 20 years of coaching people. Everyone just wants to be happy. That is the universal truth that I have found. I don't believe I've met anyone that's like, I want to wake up and be a miserable prick today. I don't think I've ever met them. I've met people that are that way.
Yes.
But I don't think they intend to be. So the self-awareness, this journey of saying, okay, let's be aware that material items aren't going to be the root of my happiness. It is going to come from within. So we start that process, and you did the journey. If I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, I want to be happy too. How do I start that process, Monique? What other than maybe obviously going to the 10-minute mind and checking out your happiness baseline, which we will absolutely do. But where else can I start that process to just genuinely be happy on a daily basis?
Yeah, I love that. Great question. I think the first thing is to understand, to really look at the things that you've obtained in your life, relationships, jobs, money, whatever, and really ask yourself the question, has it brought me lasting happiness? With the emphasis on this word lasting, does it bring me a happiness that I got this new Jeep when I was 20 and it made me happy for the rest of my life? And so that you can start to see that the happiness we experience around the things that we chase have a use by date. We're a little bit like that rat kind of running on the wheel. We get something, we kind of fall either out of love with it or we get used to it, and then we keep chasing. So to understand that and to kind of really see that with clarity is an important place to begin, because then we can start to see through the lie. We don't really want to believe it. The truth is we want to believe that these things will make us happy because it would be kind of an easy fix. Well, I'm going to buy a house and then I'll be happy. It's an easy fix. So we have to see that. And then we have to look and see, okay, if that doesn't work, then what is this whole talk about my mind? Like, what does that mean? And what that means is, it's just as simple and as complicated as this all in one. Let's say I wake up in the morning and it's pouring with rain. Depending on my mindset, and this is not about positive thinking, okay? Let me be very clear. But depending on my mindset will depend on how I see that. I might wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, it's raining. What a freaking nightmare. It's going to be hard to get to work or to school or wherever it is I've got to go. Or I might wake up and go, it's raining. It's really awesome. Everything's going to be green. It all depends on my reaction. Now, my reaction is going to be based on my habits, the habitual way that I respond to things. So, all right, I want to give you an example. Okay. We have 8 levels of consciousness, right? The first 5 levels are our senses: sight, taste, touch, smell, and hearing. So what I am going to do is I'm going to show you this mug. It's a little aluminum, like a camping mug. I brought it from New Zealand with me. All right. And what happens is that one of your 5 consciousnesses it's going to see this mug, right? And then your 6th consciousness will kick in and it recognizes that is a mug. Your 7th consciousness then says, I like it, I don't like it, or I feel neutral about it. And your 8th consciousness stores that information. Okay? Now, this is happening constantly throughout the day, through our lives, without us even being aware of it. It's so fast. It's happening in milliseconds. So what happens is I walk into a store, Camp Glenorchy from New Zealand, that's what it says. And I walk into the store, one of my favorite stores, and I see this mug and I feel drawn to it. All right? And in the moment, I think it is my reaction that's happening in the moment. But if I look closely, I'll realize that when I was a kid, I loved going camping. This represents a camping mug to me. I love Glenorchy. It's one of my favorite places in the world, and I have lived very, very close to it. And so I have all these positive emotions towards this mug. Those emotions are not happening in that moment. They are happening based on a series of past experiences that I've stored in the eighth consciousness that automatically are happening right now. Equally, I could hold up this mug, someone could see it and go, oh my God, I hate camping. I hate New Zealand. I went there and I friggin' had the worst time. I'd love to meet you if you are that person. I remember one person once telling me they had a bad time in New Zealand because they got sick, right? I've been to Glenorchy. It's horrible. I don't like it there. And I am repelled by that mug. Again, fully based on past experience. So we have this idea that we are responding to stimulus constantly on that exact moment, and we don't realize that it's literally based on past experience. Like, let's think, another great example is I walk into a restaurant and a girl, Sally, walks up. She's my waitress, and I take one look at her, and there was a girl at school, Sally, who was a bully and didn't like her, right? And immediately my wall goes up. Or I've got a great example for you. I walk into a winery in California, and there's a woman there from Montana who says to me, we start talking, and after 20 minutes, she invites me to come and stay with her in Montana. And I'm very curious. I want to go and see her. This happened just before COVID. And I say to her, why is it that you would invite someone you've just met to come and stay with you in Montana? And she says, because my sister died 3 years ago and I loved her so much, and you remind me of her. So the wall's down. Her habitual experience of someone who reminds her of her sister means someone good and wonderful. So we are going through our life like this, basically reacting based off past experience that are stored in the eighth consciousness. So the first thing we have to do is start to slow this down so we can stop freaking out about things. You know that feeling when someone says something to you and you get fully triggered, you're like, and the trigger comes up like a flame and it happens instantly. That is a perfect example of usually something that's happened in your childhood that is being triggered in that moment. So we have to slow all these triggers down so that we can start responding to our world instead of literally living in the past as we are. So the number one tool to do that is a meditation practice. It teaches us to get to know ourselves. It teaches us to get to know our habitual reactions and how our habitual thoughts and emotions, and we start to take control of them. And therein, my friend, is the biggest and first foundational key to our happiness.
Okay, guys. So you've heard me say it before, but there's so many good things to break down here. You're not alone. You have this unconscious bias because of previous, as Michael Singer calls it, subscars or previous challenges or whatever, some memory. So it's not your fault. We all have this. That's what I want everyone to understand. Now, I meditate specifically to respond, not to react. That's what I have always said. I verbalize this because people are like, you're so happy, you're so positive. I have the fastest, worst temper I know of. I have learned to say, no, that's not good. Through this practice of meditation. So I love that. And I want to get to steps 2 and maybe 3 when we get to it. But for those that say, you know what, Monique, great. I'm not good at meditating. And Mom, if you're listening, this is for you because I hear this all the time. What do you say to that? Because I have my own explanation, but I'm really curious how you really influence someone to say, you know what, that's okay. You don't have to be good, or whatever your answers. I'm so excited to hear this part.
No one's good at meditating. Okay. I've been doing it for 25 years. I'm still no good at it. All right. And it's important to understand what meditation is, because in a world where we've got all sorts of experts and all sorts of things, sometimes it gets a little foggy as to what meditation actually is. Meditation is this. It's like a gym exercise. I sit here, my mind runs off into 100 different places, and I bring it back to the present moment. It runs off, and I bring it back. And like a bicep curl, what we're doing is we're building the muscle to bring ourselves back to the present moment. That's it. So anyone who says to you, well, as I've often heard, particularly in India from young Westerners, well, I sat and meditated for an hour and I had no thoughts. I can promise you, just let that one go. There is no truth in that at all unless they're an enlightened master. All right. Thoughts and a racing mind are part of our mind, and we don't run away from it, but we just learn to settle it. And so when you sit down and you start to meditate, if you're learning meditation correctly, you are probably going to find that your mind is crazy and all over the place. Listen, I used to fall asleep when I first started learning meditation. I would just go to sleep. So now I do open eye meditation, which is a meditation I've been practicing for 25 years. So you've got to find a technique that works for you. And all you're doing is my mind goes off, but I focus on something. Could be as simple as, look, here's this pen. I'm just going to gently look at this pen. My mind is going to run off into 100 different places. And at some point I'll realize, and I'll come back to the pen. Okay. All right. Oh my God, there it goes again. Okay. I'll come back to the pen. And slowly but surely over time, the amount of time, and I mean slowly but surely, the amount of time you can focus on that pen will start to increase. And there'll be a gap between yourself and the next thought. And that's why it works for you, because you say, I've got this fiery temper. And all of a sudden, the thought comes, and here is this little bit of a gap where you're able to make a decision. What is my response going to be? And that's why meditation is so powerful for so many reasons. But that's one of them. The other is we start to get to know ourselves. And I promise you, after a while, when you sit there and you realize, when I sit here quietly by myself, my mind just goes to the same places over and over again. You start to get pretty bored with them. And you, after a while, can't be even bothered going there. And that also loosens the mind up.
Yeah, it is such I love that you've said 25 years, and yet again, I'm still practicing. I'm still working at it. And that's the whole key here, is in this world of instant gratification, you're not going to be a master of anything. And you, even the enlightened comment, because I've said that as well. I don't know that I've met several monks. Again, my father-in-law is Thai. I've spent time around his brother, who is also a monk, not enlightened, but a fascinating man. That would not even be, that's not even the goal of mine, right? The goal is just to, like you said, sit with myself. All right.
And it feels good. You know, it feels good. We start to see, let me do 30 days. You know, my program, the 10-minute mind, is just 10 minutes. That's it. And we get to the end of 30 days and we start to see, I'm dealing with things a little bit differently. It's, you know, when you go out in the rain and it's a very fine mist, and before you know it, you're completely drenched. That's a little bit like meditation. You start and you're like, I don't really know this is doing anything. And about the 30-day mark, someone will say to you, hey, you're kind of nicer at the moment, or you're dealing with things differently, or you start to see that people are liking you better, or you're feeling better, you're feeling more confident, you're feeling more positive in yourself. And I was working, my lawyer actually in New York, and I'm very, very good friends. And it took me ages to get her to do the 10-minute mind. And she finally started doing it. And 30 days in, she went away. She's very A-type personality, as you can imagine. She goes away to a weekend with some girlfriends of hers who all say, whatever you're on, we want to be on it as well. And she was like, Oh, that's so interesting. I started meditating 30 days ago. They were like, it's doing wonders for you. So, often we don't even see it in ourselves. Other people start to see something's shifting.
Yeah. So I don't want to stop from, because you said step one, and if there's step 2 and 3 that you want to go into, we can go there. But you also mentioned something that I really want to talk about, which is you said, this is not me being positive. Rather, it's more of whether you call it perspective, mindset. And you were very clear and intentional about separating the two, which I think is important, because there is where people are like, stop just being positive. That doesn't work. Maybe truth, may not, whatever your stance is on it. But I like the way you said, hold on, this is not about being positive. This is about your perspective. This is about your mindset. This is about the possibilities of what it could be. Tell me why you made that distinction. That's option 1, or option 2 is going to step 2. And I'm cool with either, but
I'm loving option 1. It's such a good point, because I mean, I think when, some years ago, we were all kind of taught to stand in front of the mirror and, say positive things, I love you and all that. But truth is, if we do that, we're telling ourselves a lie. And we know that there's a lie there, right? If I stand in front of the mirror and I don't feel good about myself and I think I'm not looking good on my way, and I say to myself, I love you just as you are, or whatever we could say, I've got to think positively. I've got to say positive things to myself. It's almost like we're overriding something that we don't believe. So to have an authentic relationship with ourselves is really important, to not lie to ourselves. I know for some people, mantras like that work, and that's great. But truly, positive bypassing doesn't work because of that lie. And so it's much more important to have an authentic relationship. So one of the most important things, I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he said to me that his friend has written a book on happiness. And he said, what I've understood from this book is that I need to eliminate the things that don't make me happy. And I'm like, you know what? You could try that, but it's going to mean that you're going to end up in a very tight kind of world. Oh, here's something stressful, I better hide away from it. Here's something difficult, I better hide away from it. The most important thing we can understand is that life is freaking hard. Okay? That's it. Life is super hard. And we can't go around saying, hey, life is easy and I've just got to get with it. If we can come from the premise that life is difficult, which would go absolutely against the positive movement, then all of a sudden we accept something fundamental. Life is difficult, okay? And it's like there's all these waves, and we can either get pummeled by them or we can surf them. And I'm all about teaching people to surf them. So for myself, when I say to you that I have such a solid happiness, that I do, and I'm a very positive person like you are, I have the luxury of being able to do that because I know I can deal with my suffering differently. I don't get dragged down by it. I don't get pummeled by it. Do difficult things happen in my life? Probably on a daily basis, right? But the way that I respond to them is completely different from the way that I used to. And because I understand that life is suffering, I don't fight it. If I tell you there's something I understood is I'm here and happiness is here. And in the middle, the suffering is the expectation. If I expect something to be like this and it's not, that's where I suffer. So I let go of all the expectation. I do my best. I hope for the best, but I allow everything to be exactly as it is because I understand that life's suffering. And in that place, then I'm able to enjoy everything because I don't have this false expectation that I'm living in some kind of Candyland, fantasy, Disneyland. Maybe Disneyland is what I grew up believing that life was going to be. It's not that, and particularly right at the moment, I think we're living in a very difficult moment in history. So it's okay to go, this is tough. It's tough for you. It's tough for me. It's tough for everybody. Let me relate to all of that difficulty differently.
Yeah, and I love that, because again, it's a choice that you get to make. You get to choose joy, or you get to choose misery and suffering. And look, there's plenty of both. It's really there. As you were talking, I have my daily reminders, and what I was thinking about for all of my listeners, they're like, Jam, you're positive. But if you look at any of my reminders, my mantras, I never say anything about positive. I say, have a growth mindset always. I say, keep perspective. And then I think of my dad, who I lost this year, or my brother-in-law. That's my perspective piece. And then I think of stay present in the now. And when I think about that, and I verbalized it for the first time to my audience, because I don't share a lot. I like to make the focus on you, but I want to say that to say, okay, what do you grab from that? Because for me, if I stay present, no matter what is happening, I genuinely find joy. If I stay in the past, there's lots of good memories, but there's some really crappy ones too. And if I'm looking really far into the future, and again, this is Lao Tzu who said this years ago, 2000 some odd years ago. If I'm looking at the future, that's a bunch of anxiety. That's not joy either. So if I'm able to really stay focused, present, and again, meditation is a big part of that for myself, I don't find misery and suffering. I find joy. I find peace. I find just a freedom, if you will. What do you take away from that? And in any thoughts?
Yeah, I do have a thought about it. I just want to go a little further with it. You're absolutely right. Why is that the case? Because when we think about it, the past actually doesn't exist. When I think about something from the past, if I say to you right now, think about something wonderful that happened this year, your memory of it is completely subjective. It's based on where you were, how you were feeling, the pieces you remember from it. And as we all know, if there were 10 other people there, they would all see it completely differently because of that lens that each of us look through the world in. So if we were to say the truth about the past, there is no truth because it's just a subjective memory anyway. So it doesn't exist. And the future hasn't come yet. So that doesn't exist either. It's just a figment of our imagination. And if I was to say to you, how many things that you think about in the future actually come to fruition? Well, I mean, there's stats that show that, 85% of things that we worry about don't even happen. So we know that thinking into the future, we're not good at it, right? And it's imaginary. So wait a second. The past is imaginary. The future is imaginary. The only moment that actually exists is this one right now that we never really managed to be in because we're so busy thinking about thoughts of the past and thinking about thoughts of the future. But when we are able to be in the present moment, which is what we learn in meditation, all of the stress and anxiety dissolves because we step out of those two imaginary worlds that we're living in most of the time.
So you're giving some amazing, tangible things. Like when you just said that 85% of what you're worrying about doesn't happen. So much wasted energy. And I hope people hear that. I'm like, just hear that. Stop worrying about it. And I know that sounds so simple for some that deal with real anxiety, real challenges. I get it. It's not what we're saying doesn't necessarily come easy to folks, but there are practices and there are courses and there are people like Monique that are available to really help you with that. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say, so obviously meditation is a huge part of what you do, Monique. What else, if you were to say, man, I really wish everyone would do this on a daily basis? Is there anything that just you're like, I need everyone to consider doing this on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important things we can do on a daily basis is a gratitude practice. And it's very simple, but the way that I teach it is a little bit specific. So I get my students, in the happiness baseline, we start in the first week and we look deeply at gratitude. What gratitude does is it shifts our mind from everything that's not working to what is. And we live in a world right now where we are inundated with what's not working. If you don't believe me, open up a news page and you will see it is full of fear and anxiety. So we need to shift our mindset and create some balance. And we do that through a meditation, through a gratitude practice. But the most powerful thing is that if I get you to do 5 gratitudes, right, a day, you go, I'm grateful for my dog who's over here. I'm grateful that the sun's shining, right? You're probably not going to get very far. If I say to you, I want you to give me 5 gratitudes a day, and I want you to put a because in there. I'm grateful for my dog because we have so much fun together. It makes me feel good. Suddenly, I'm kicking into an emotional state that makes me feel really good. I'm so grateful that the sun's shining because when I go out, I love feeling the warmth on my skin. Makes me feel good, right? So if you were to do that every day, you will see a huge shift. And also to do it in your relationships. Sit down at the end of the day with your beloved and tell them 2 things that you're grateful for them for that day. And you watch your relationship turn around.
What's really cool about what you've said is basically stop lying to yourself. And when you say, I'm grateful for my dog because Scooter or Johnny or whatever the dog's name is, makes me so happy. He licks my face. He loves me unconditionally. You trigger the positive emotional side, which, guys, so we're clear, you can't stop that emotion. It's way faster than me snapping my fingers by like 1,000,000 times or far more than that. I love that. And I've never heard somebody actually say that. I'm grateful because that's really, really smart. I want to give you an open forum right now where you're just like, I am feeling this. It's on my heart. We need to cover this before we start to wrap things up.
Okay, I would say to you that most of us might look at something like this and go, well, maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe I can't figure this happiness stuff out, or maybe there are some people that naturally are happier than others. And, like sometimes we have someone, who's a better runner because their body's built that way. This work is not like that at all. Not at all. So I have a course called the Happiness Baseline. We test people at the beginning of it with the standard happiness test, the most well-known one, and we test them at the end. I have 100% success rate in shifting people's happiness levels in that course. This work is available to you no matter what. Learning how to work with yourself and raise your happiness levels is not something that's for the rich, for the famous, for the clever, anything, not at all. It is a series of shifting habits, and every single person is able to master their own mind and master their happiness. I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I did it. So I know if I can do it, literally anyone can. And I've proved that through the thousands and thousands of students we put through this course, and we see such phenomenal results. So, that I think that's the most important thing. This is not some kind of club that anyone's excluded from. If you want to be happy, you can be.
And sorry if there's something happening outside here.
Can't hear it.
Oh, good. That's fantastic. The being happiness, people live longer, right? They live more fulfilled lives. What are some other tangible things that I may not be thinking of? Because I'm shying away from success, although you can, I guess, based on how you define success, happiness comes before success. For those of you that are looking for more financial reward, happiness comes first. Monique, what else am I missing that I want people to tie it all together? Say, you want to be happy, not only feel good, fulfilling relationships, but because
you're absolutely going to be healthier. You're probably going to make better choices. You get to the end of your life and think, I did it. I did the life that I wanted. I didn't do it because anybody told me what I needed to do or I was obliged. Like it's like taking full control of your life when you're happy, because you're so much more confident in yourself. You get unstuck. We're around that time of year where we're starting to look at, what has this last year been like? What's the 2023 going to be like? And we look at all the things that we have or haven't done. And, it's amazing when you're happy, because you can step in with confidence into whatever it is that you want. You make better decisions. You definitely have the ability to make more money because you'll be wiser. Your mind will be calmer. You'll be clearer about your instinct, your gut instinct about what's the smartest thing for me to do right now. So being unhappy is a fear-based state. It's always a fear-based state. And when we're in a fear-based state, we're always tight. And when we're tight, we never can make the best decisions for ourselves. So yeah, it's a no-brainer. It's like, it is definitely something that we're all wanting.
I agree. And I say it every day. You use the words happy and healthy. It's so true. It's universal truths. And again, you've traveled all over the world, and that is the common denominator. Everyone wants to be happy and healthy.
Yeah.
Monique, for those that want to really connect with you online, learn more about the 10-minute mind, the happiness baseline, where's the best place for them to connect with you online?
Yeah, we have this great little quiz called howhappyami.com. Come there, do the quiz, just have a look, see how happy you are, and use that as a starting point. I have all my courses, which you can find out about. The happiness baseline, I don't know. I just think everyone should do it. That's just my feeling, because it's so amazing. And I do something very different. You'll find out when you get there, so that you can actually do this course for free. So come in and check it out, because for me, it's all about people being able to do this work. And I also have a daily podcast that you can come and listen to, which is called In Your Right Mind. And I teach every day, just a little bite-sized thing every day on that podcast. So all those ways are ways that you can find me. And I'm always available to help each and every person on quite a personal level to be able to achieve these goals, because I don't want this just to be for me. I want this to be accessible and available to everybody.
Well, you guys heard it. We will link all of those assets in the show notes. She mentioned free. Look, I wouldn't take it just because it's free. I'd take it because she's brilliant. But I think that is such an amazing gift and opportunity for everyone. So, Monique, you're awesome. Thank you for coming and shedding so much of your experience and your wisdom and what you found on your road to happiness. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved this interview.
You guys, she talked about two of my favorite things, happy and healthy, and meditation, being present. The way she explained her gratitude practice, that's the most simple, best explanation I've ever heard. And I talked to you guys about gratitude practice. I'm immediately going to implement. Not only am I grateful, but I'm grateful because. Make sure to share this. This is such an important episode. I didn't know how great it was going to be, but it was pretty freaking awesome. And I want all of the people you care about to hear about Monique, her work, and all of us just being happier. So until next time, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate you all, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.